And we are live. How you doing, Mets fans? It's your boy Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest pregame segment as we're going to break down everything that you guys and gals need to know leading into tonight's Game 2 matchup out of a 4-game set there at Citi Field against the Chicago Cubs. Of course, the Mets lost yesterday's Game 1 of a 4-game set game by a final score of 3-1 after you saw brilliance from Luis Severino, but unfortunately, anemic offense once again as Jameson Taillon carved up these Mets batters through 7 or so innings. And then a Mets team that had a Joey Wendell misplay that ultimately hurt them big time and was the start of the unraveling of the Mets later in yesterday's ball game, and then end with Diaz getting squeezed, ultimately giving up a hanger for a 2-run shot, and that ultimately does it. And that's how the Mets drop Game 1 of this series. Now they look to bounce back and even things in what is not going to be an easy task for this Mets offense that has been so Jekyll and Hyde already so far this season, are now going to be matching up against one of the most young, exciting, and again, high upside starters from right-handedness, especially there in all the National League, Mr. Javier Assad. So we're going to get into what you guys need to know about Assad and his game, the Cubs lineup, how it matches up versus the Mets today, what I like, maybe certainly what I don't like, and then, of course, we're going to get into Wardy's Bet US picks and parlays of the day, as there is 4 games in particular I would like to headline as I did yesterday. I'll tell you how our picks did yesterday, what we liked, and ultimately what didn't go in our favor, and everything in between. But everyone first chiming in live here on YouTube, and for people watching this on Twitter, thank you all so much, but know that I will only be interacting with our YouTube viewers per usual. If this is your first time chiming in, wondering what kind of content can you expect here on WardyNYM, we're the largest Mets platform, not directly affiliated with the Mets or SNY. I, of course, have had little stints in the past working with SNY online. Same thing, of course, with WFAN with their daily podcast over the past week and a half now. And I'm a host on Bleacher Report, where you guys can check me covering the Mets and MLB coverage as a whole every single month there in the Bleacher Report app. So happy to have you all here. I do see Carlos, how you doing? Carlos, great member. We see my man Frankie, how you doing? Andy, BR, Matty Boy, Eric Thorpe, great member as well. BR, how you doing? Everyone watching on Twitter as well, make sure that like, that follow button, that retweet button. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that like button, subscribe button, and of course make sure you have the notification bell on, folks. But the big news today, the big news that we're going to start the discussion before we get into, of course, the lineups that you see there. What is there to know? The big discussion, of course, starts with, yes, Mark Vientos. Mark Vientos, as we know, was called up by the Mets just over the past couple days, and what seemed like, at least initially, for certain going to be a short stint. And while that ends up holding true, there is a little bit of controversy considering the fact that Mark Vientos ends up having hits in his first 3 plate appearances at the MLB level so far this season. 2 opposite field singles, pinch hitting in the 9th in back-to-back days, and then a walk-off 2-run opposite field bomb on a 97 heater up and away. Beautiful stuff there from Mark Vientos, and now Marky V, as a return for all of his contribution in just a 72-hour span or so, he is sent back down to the minors as Starling Marte has been activated from the bereavement list. Very happy to have Marte back. He'll be available off the bench, but the Mets are not starting Marte today. They're going to give him another day. Maybe he comes in the game later on if need be, especially depending on how DJ Stewart looks out there, and Harrison Bader you have, of course, as another outfield option, a strong one at that defensively. But while we're all excited that Marte's back in this lineup, I think there's some fair criticism as to having Mark Vientos sent down. Now, I understand ultimately why the Mets made this decision, but I would be lying if I told you that I wasn't really surprised by the news still at the end of the day. And maybe that's shame on me, because you know what? I honestly and truthfully thought that after Vientos contributing as much as he did in such a limited sample size, that would be something that the Mets at minimum will want to ponder and consider giving more playing time for at least another week or two to kind of see what you have there and to ride that hot hand while it's there for you in Mark Vientos. Instead, the Mets opt with Brett Baty as, again, who's going to be their everyday third baseman for the foreseeable future right now. Even with Baty's most recent struggles that we've seen with his struggle to lift the ball, of course, that is not stopping the Mets from committing to Brett Baty with how this roster is currently constructed. But before I get into more on Baty and why the Mets ultimately made the decision to send him down today instead of, say, a Joey Wendell, where I have a lot to say on, I'd love to see your initial reactions to the news here, everyone watching live on our replay. And again, thank you all so much for being here. Lion, how you doing? Thank you so much for the kind words. That means a lot. D, how you doing? Great member. No more Wendell, please. You're preaching to the choir, my friend. Trust me, you are certainly doing that. Bear with me, everybody, as I just want to make sure that I have everything set up and live for people on Twitter, and I do love to see that, or we already have over 100 concurrent on Twitter. Thank you all so much for that. Really does mean a lot, everybody. But let me just get this in here too. Give me 1 second, folks, and then we will continue on with our coverage. All right, folks, how we doing? So we saw Mark Vientos be sent down, and again, as I mentioned, and as I will say again, I was very taken back by the news. And while I initially thought Mark Vientos would be sent down immediately, after you saw the immediate production he had, it was just so hard to justify, in my opinion. Now, Carlos Mendoza did speak to the media, of course, pregame today, and did say, of course, it was a tough discussion to have, but Vientos, of course, took it well. Mark even had his own interview today prior to going back there in AAA, and he said, you know, he expected this pretty much. Obviously, he would have loved a longer stint, but I got to give a massive kudos and massive credit to Mark Vientos. He has had a fantastic head on his shoulders, and outside of that potential controversy with him liking and the unliking post of Rhys Hoskins just killing the Mets, you know, outside of that, there's been a lot of good that's come from Mark Vientos being sent down when the season started, not hitting his head too low, understanding what his current role is, and understanding why JD Martinez was brought here. JDM puts his arm around him, literally puts his wing around him as soon as he gets there late in spring training with the Mets and Vientos. So you can tell that Mark is definitely learning and listening to the veterans on the club, especially the newer guy in JDM, and he's making all the right choices. You know, he again has a great head on his shoulders. He's one that seems, at least in the public eye, pretty even keeled about everything. Naturally, he's disappointed to be sent down, but he could be going about this a lot worse, and I think that's a very important thing to acknowledge for a young player. They'll still try and get his footing at it as a everyday major leaguer. Now let's go into why did the Mets make this decision? Why exactly did they send Mr. Mark Vientos down regardless of the success that he has had over the past couple days? Well, the simple answer is there just isn't room for him. Remember how the Mets didn't start the year with Mark Vientos because they wanted to make sure he got consistent reps defensively at third base and at first base? Well, nothing has changed in their viewpoint regardless of Vientos' production over the past couple days. All Mark did was help his chances to come back to the Mets sooner when they're going to consider him either in a limited stint again because of injury, or if they want to consider him more than that. As Carlos Mendoza, Mets manager, even said it himself today, we expect him to have a big impact on the team this season. So what does that mean? Again, we'll find out as the season goes on, but in the time being, again, Brett Baty, he of course is the more reliable defender between the two, as we know. Yes, Baty still has some significant holes in his offensive game that he's working on, but the Mets clearly like what they see in Brett Baty thus far. David Stearns did not hold anything back. David Stearns was all smiles when discussing Brett Baty in his game yesterday, and really didn't bat too much of an eye into his current production, and saying how, you know what, this happens throughout the normal course of 162. We really want to give this guy a leash. And while the Mets want to give a leash to Vientos as well, they're trying to find this balance of having success for the club right now while also focusing on the future. And Vientos, the downside by having him on the roster in a platoon type setting is that you are hurting his chances of course, having daily reps, which he wouldn't have, which means they're going to hurt his defensive upside that he's trying to work on, which you need, again, consistent reps out there in the hot corner at first base. However, wherever they want to play him, even for a guy that I think we can all agree probably profiles best as a DH in his career, Vientos still, for not only the Mets value purposes and for trade value purposes, want to make sure that he still gets consistent reps out there in those respective positions. So that all in all is why the Mets made their decision. And I know you're going to hate to hear the next part, folks. It's not just about DJ Stewart, who honestly, I'm perfectly fine with DJ still being on the roster. I think that's still justified. DJ does a great job with his eye at the plate. He's getting on base at a great clip right now. He's being selective with his swings. I really don't have too much gripes to say about DJ Stewart, funny enough, after wanting him off the team the first 2 weeks of the season, because you can tell there's that maturity level with someone like him who's been in the game for as long as he's been now. Again, DJ isn't, this young, savvy, this little rookie the way that Vientos essentially is. DJ has a lot more reps and a lot more experience, and that goes in hand, along with him playing the corner outfield, which he's starting today, all because they want to make sure Harrison Bader isn't, playing every single day if they don't need to. They want DJ in the lineup lineup, a lefty-righty against a soft tosser in Assad, who just has a absolute disgusting kitchen sink of an arsenal with 6 different pitches, doing his best Chris Bassett impression out there. But I can understand wanting DJ on the roster, and he still provides some defensive upside for you, even though I'd go on a limb and say that isn't too much there. You look at Joey Wendell, and Joey Wendell, folks, is the bigger problem here. You know, it's not, actually, I shouldn't even say that. It really isn't Joey Wendell, because at the end of the day, as much as I do not want Joey Wendell on the team, Lisa, thank you so much for being in here. Greatly appreciate that. Shout out to everyone first watching live on a replay. Thank you all so much as we're breaking down the latest in Mets land, as I get you guys and gals all prepared for tonight's key matchup in Game 2 of a 4-game set at Citi Field against the Chicago Cubs. We're about to break down the lineups here for the Cubs and the Mets, and then get into my parlay of the day here, presented by our great sponsor at BetUS, in which you can check them out by clicking the link down below. That way you too sign up today with 125% bonus with not your first, not your second, but your first 3 deposits. It's that easy for all your sports betting needs. Check them out, link down below as always, folks. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit more about the situation again with Vientos and Beatty, because this comes down to the Mets want to make sure Vientos has as much consistent reps as possible. So while Joey Wendell is a complete net negative, should not be on this roster, in my opinion. He was signed as your Luis Gourmet replacement, a defensive utility that you can utilize later in game, and he is single-handedly costing the Mets games. He's done it multiple times already this season, and but it's now been the latest example of yesterday, or again, the tying run comes in to score here, all because, yes, instead of turning and throwing it home where you had time, could have gone the out with ease, Joey Wendell thought it would be best to try to turn a far more difficult double play that, of course, becomes a fielder's choice. Unbelievable. The fact that that run is even charged to Sevy is beyond me. Very frustrating. That's one of those decisions where you have to say, you know what? Just because your defender made a stupid decision doesn't mean that the pitcher should have to be costed for it. I would love it if that was thrown in as an error, but it isn't. It's just a fielder's choice. But Joey Wendell, who again is supposed to give you some production at third base, at second base, wherever you want to put him in the infield, at minimum as a defensive replacement, he's not even doing that properly. I think if Mark Vientos is playing all game yesterday, which I wish he did in hindsight, and I wish Mendoza gave that leash, even with dealing with, yes, Luis Severino, because at the end of the day, Mark Vientos was the third baseman throughout Sevy's whole start yesterday. So why stop it then? I thought that was absolutely silly. Vientos looked completely fine and comfortable in the hot corner from what we saw for the most part, and then you see Joey Wendell come in, and it's like Joey Wendell, you know, is going to be a downside offensively, because the most you're going to get from Joey is a couple opposite field base hits because he's behind, but he is swinging hard enough and, of course, leveling enough to go opposite field, slapping the ball like a Jet McNeil, like in the past of Luis Gourmet. But that's all you're going to get from him on average, offensively at best. And defensively, Mark Vientos did nothing to say, hey, I can't go and target and drive into that ball and throw it home right away, versus instead doing a double play, which would have been silly. Again, we're never going to know now, but this is another frustration that goes in hand with Vientos sent down. I think there aren't as many fans truly bothered necessarily by Vientos being sent down, because we at least can understand why they made that decision. It's the same exact reason why Vientos has not been on the roster to this point, and why it takes a bereavement list stint for Starling Marte to warrant a call-up right now. It's because the Mets want to give them consistent reps. But even while we understand those things, it doesn't mean that we necessarily need to love the move, or at least completely agree with the move. In the case of Joey Wendell, again, his days are counting. They're ticking. I don't see how much longer he stays on this Mets roster here personally. And furthermore, the Mets just made a move today to basically sign a potential Joey Wendell replacement. And it's a longtime friend that we've seen there in, and Mike Brousseau. Mike Brousseau, for those that don't know, is a longtime Milwaukee Brewer, was with them for multiple years. David Stearns knows him very well during their time in Milwaukee, and he signed with the Mets on a minor league deal today. So Mike Brousseau, for those that don't know him, has played at shortstop, second base, third base, first base, left field, and has even pitched in 10 games in the major leagues. Crazy enough. The 30-year-old has a career 741 OPS and a just under 2.8 ERA at the major league level. Doing his best Michael Lorenzen impression, just Walmart version. A lot less good in regards to actually being a consistent starter one or reliever, what have you, while also being a productive bat. But Brousseau, what he does offer is, again, a versatile infield option that, again, if the Mets have more continued issues with someone like Joey Wendell, do not be shocked if they turn to a Mike Brousseau or potentially a Iglesias in the minors. Even though with Jose, his defense, while it looked flashy in spring, I promise you, it's not as good as what you think, and that goes directly hand with why he's not really an everyday MLB player anymore. He hasn't even been in the leagues consistently in years, and that's not only because Jose Iglesias is very much a high contact hitter, which is fun, but this is not a contact game as much anymore as it is gap to gap and power. That is, of course, what they're going to care about most when guys are hitting the market. And ultimately, defensively, Jose Iglesias has not been a plus defender in a number of years as well. He has great hands, but his speed isn't there, and I can understand why we have Mike Brousseau now in the mix as a guy for the Mets to consider should Joey Wendell continue to falter as being the ultimate utility man on the roster. Because again, there's little, in my opinion, and I mean there's very little to justify Joey Wendell being on this team right now, because he has done nothing of what you'd hope or ask for him to do. And the worst part is that we've even had this guy start some games, and there's no good that ever comes from something like that. So that is all the latest in Mets land regarding Mark Vientos, regarding Brett Baty, regarding Joey Wendell, and of course regarding now the new Met who will be there in AAA Syracuse for the time being at least, and Mike Brousseau. Mike might very well spend the majority of the season in AAA should he stay in the organization, and that's fine. But just again, a name to keep an eye out for, knowing that David Stearns purposely made that signing with the way that Joey Wendell's been playing. So they 100% go in hand. Resign Zach Short. I mean, Zach Short is still in the organization, if I'm not mistaken, unless he opted for free agency. But if he clears, Zach Short should be going out right there to AAA if that hasn't been announced yet. But before I get on to answering a couple of your questions, everybody, I just want to say again, thank you all so much for chiming in as we're breaking down everything to know here between the Mets and the Cubs tonight here. And now I really want to get into these lineups. But before I do, I will just double check to make sure I don't miss anything from the comments from you guys. Sanders says, wrong decision by Stearns. He should have DFA'd Wendell. Vientos has nothing else to prove in Syracuse. He can hit MLB pitching. He can hit MLB pitching. But that's not why the move happened. The move again happened more so for the sake of wanting Vientos to get consistent reps at, a pro level versus him being in a limited sample size and potentially hurting his development and confidence. Because at the end of the day, he still has plenty to prove on the defensive end there in AAA. And David Stearns didn't hold anything back when he spoke on that in his presser yesterday. He said, yeah, there's been some moments where he's looked strong defensively. There's been some moments where he really hasn't, to put it lightly, that we saw there from David Stearns' remarks yesterday. So again, Mark is proving it that he can catch up to MLB caliber pitching. We know it. He's one of the harder hitters in all Major League Baseball. The early percentiles suggest that. They will tell you that. But what's also true is the bigger idea, the bigger picture here, which is why Vientos wasn't on the roster to begin the season to begin with. And that is because they want to give him everyday reps, and they're not going to do that right now because they would have him in a platoon situation with Baty. So as things currently stand, that's why they made their decision. I can understand criticism or not loving it, but again, that is in simple terms why they did what they did. But once again, I was very, very surprised to say, not very surprised to say, but very surprised still to see the Vientos news. I really did not think that was going to happen. That took me a little off guard today. Some people thought I was being sarcastic when I tweeted that, and truthfully, I wasn't. That was one of the few times where the Mets really kind of shook me and had me standing back like, oh, wow. Like, I really did not anticipate that to happen with the way he's been producing. My server team is ruined. I started Mark Vientos. Oh, Yuki, I'm so sorry. I mean, you and I both, in fairness. And speaking of so rare MLB guys, we're going to be building a team today that we're going to be entering a limited tournament with our awesome sponsor. Because, guys, if you don't know, we do have all week long up until May 6th, we have a So Rare MLB Mets ticket giveaway offer right now. It's an awesome promo going on right now. And you just got to click the link down below to sign up to So Rare MLB Fantasy today. Build your team, enter one, common tournament, which again, you don't have to spend dollars to build your team any which way to do so. That in simple terms, you can buy, sell, trade cards, collect all virtual cards, but they're unique to you. You build your team as you would in, say, MLB The Show. It's very similar in that manner to being your own MLB GM. And if you do the simple steps of signing up with my unique link down below and entering a tournament this week, you'll automatically be entered for your chance to win a couple Mets tickets to whatever games you want to go to this season. And the grand prize, the number one winner out of 4 people total selected, will be winning a $100 credit to then utilize on the SoRare MLB marketplace to buy upgraded cards for their team of the best players that they could be looking for there. You know, that's a lot of money that you can utilize there to really stretch out and build your team, to upgrade it from, say, the rarity levels go from, you know, common, uncommon, all the way to like rare, super rare in those areas. And that's where cards go from being free to you actually have to pay on the marketplace, or you can buy packs or whatever you want to go about it. So make sure to check that out. That promo does in fact end on May 6th. So until then, you guys will have an awesome opportunity, great chance, because we only have, again, it's only whoever enters from here. So very well could be anywhere from 50 people, could be 100 people. Even if it's, say, 1,000 people, those odds are still very much in your favor versus it being a whole channel subscriber giveaway as a whole. So make sure you guys check it out today in case you haven't already. First winners will be announced May 6th, and we will be doing plenty of promos like this for the foreseeable future. Let's see here. Hey, Rory, I'm doing fantastic. Jacob, how are you? Going up in the list here, everybody. Okay, now let's talk. Now let's get into these laps here. And let's start with the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs didn't have much for Luis Severino, who was absolutely brilliant yesterday, but they did have something there for Edwin Diaz. And that, unfortunately, is a Christopher Morel, who just needs to play against the Mets to really get things going this season. Awesome breakout rookie last year. Has been off to a fairly slow start this season, but ripped the game-winning home run for Chicago and their victory yesterday. But Nico Hoerner leads off. Again, the tremendous talent there, commanding second base. Not big with the offense with Nico, but of course he can swing into one every now and then and has awesome defense. One of the better second basemen defensively in all Major League Baseball. Patrick Wisdom, who can play first base, could probably play some third base, but not at a good clip whatsoever. Big swing and miss guy, but has the power for sure. Gets to start today at first base with the rookie, and Mr. Matt Bush will be coming off the bench today. Ian Happ, the switch-hitting outfielder, will be batting third. One of the grizzled vets, you could rightfully say, with this Cubs team. And as I look at it right now, yeah, Ian Happ is 100% the longest tenured batter in the lab today for the Chicago Cubs. Christopher Morel batting fourth, as we see there. Dansby Swanson, who broke up, unfortunately, Sevy's no-hit bid yesterday with a broken bat single there with a sub-700 OPS, bats fifth. Mike Tauchman, who's really found a home now in Chicago after bouncing a former Yankee as well with a 939 OPS on the season. He is going to be batting sixth there. Nick Madrigal is going to be batting seventh there, 530 OPS. He's been coming off the bench. Not a complete everyday player for the Cubs at this point currently. Miguel Amaya, who of course is the other backstop along with the veteran Yan Gomes. He gets to start today, 613 OPS for the catcher. And Alexander Canario is going to get the start in right field today. And this goes in hand, of course, with Cody Bellinger still out with the injury. Alexander will command right field with a 798 OPS and a limited sample size this year. And Javier Assad, one of the best young right-handers in all Major League Baseball, especially the National League, toes the rubber for the Cubs today with a 2-year ERA, a 2.87 expected ERA. When I tell you guys he's got the kitchen sink to throw at you, I'm not bluffing. He quite literally has the kitchen sink to throw at you. He's got the 92 mile per hour sinker, which is absolutely disgusting. 88 mile per hour cutter, 92 mile per hour four seam, 80 mile per hour slider, 85 mile per hour changeup, and 76 mile per hour curveball. This man has the four seamer as his third pitch in his arsenal. And if you look at his advanced numbers here through Baseball Savant, 94th percentile in pitching run value, 95th percentile in fastball run value, 57th percentile in breaking run value, 74th percentile in off-speed run value. He's been so good at locating his sinker and that heater. Expected ERAs in the 80th percentile this season. Expect batting average at 203s in the 83rd percentile. Fastball velocity is one of the soft tossers, which is why if the Mets are going to have success, they're going to need to make sure that they can hone in on this crafty pitching, because it's not going to come in too fast. It might be deceptive, but again, very much hittable on the velocity there. That's why he's only in the 18th percentile in all Major League Baseball in that regard among pitchers. 86th percentile, however, in average exit velocity, because he doesn't induce too much, hard contact. Chase percentage, 51 percentile, just above average. Whip percentage doesn't get a lot of swing and miss, but again, he is not a heavy strikeout pitcher. That's not what you're getting. And Mr. Javier Assad, he's going to induce those fly ball outs, of course, and try to induce those ground outs too, even though he has struggled so far this season to do that part at least. It has been far more about, especially, lifting and just not getting enough air, simple flyouts there, in shallow center, or you're going to get pop-ups in the infield. Javier Assad has been brilliant, over a year and a half now. He's looked fantastic, to say the least. But whip percentage in the 14th percentile, K percentage 61st percentile, walk percentage and barrel percentage both around league average at 49 percentile apiece. Hard hit percentage does not get hard hit much, 91st percentile. Hopefully JD Martinez has something to say about that today. Ground ball percentage 13 percentile because again he has not been a heavy ground ball pitcher this year, so thus far an extension 53rd percentile. So yes, Javier Assad not overwhelming with the velocity by any stretch, but most certainly a disasterly pitcher for the Mets, and I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever if they have some significant problems against yet another dominant pitcher here early on in the season. Because let's keep it a buck, everybody. Every pitcher that's been off to a really good start this year, the Mets have not had an answer for at all. They made Jameson Taillon look like Cy Young yesterday. If it isn't for Brandon Nimmo, absolutely ripping the first thing he sees pretty much, the Mets had nothing else to show for it. Doing pre-games in addition to post. Started doing pre-games this season, BC. And pre-game shows will be hosted by more than just me. There will be other segments this year that are hosted by other awesome, amazing Mets fans in the community that make respective content that we're going to have them on the channel as, basically on the WardyNYM platform here to help out in times where I can't necessarily be here because I'm busy going on with, life, personal things, or of course, just wanting to expand things a bit more and really making this as big of a community as possible. Let's see here. Imanaga is going to be really tough tomorrow, 100%. And that's why winning Game 2 is that much more important for a Mets team today that has struggled mightily in Game 2s of series so far this year. Even in a 4-game set, I don't love it to say the least. Let's see. BC, yep, there you go, brother. But that's really the gist of it right now as we evaluate what's going on with the Cubs and their lineup tonight. So let me know how your thoughts are about the Cubs as they match up here with the Mets. I also realize I'm like slightly blurry. If I am, I apologize about that, everybody. But now let's take a look at the Mets lineup because it is as follows. A little different. It's an interesting one here, but it makes sense. They want to have a lefty-heavy lineup here against Assad where it's justified. And you have Brandon Nimmo leading off with a 715 OPS after that leadoff bomb yesterday. Francisco Lindor is 644 average. They're at short. Lindor, we know we need to be better. That's a broken record. Pete Alonso, 824 OPS. They're batting third. JD Martinez batting fourth. This will probably be the last time that these two are batting third and fourth. And same thing with Lindor batting second. Marte should be slotted back in to the 2-hole tomorrow. And he may very well come in later in this game as a pinch hitter. Wouldn't shock me at all. But JD Martinez is going to be batting fourth with a 693 OPS. Had himself a hit yesterday. The Mets did not have much yesterday, but JD Martinez was the other man to get on base in the first inning after the Nimmo home run. Jeff McNeil, who I absolutely hate batting fifth. I see no upside in that, and I'll stand by that. 664 OPS, batting fifth. Tyrone Taylor, 734 OPS, batting sixth and commanding right field. We love some Tyrone Taylor here. We know that Tyrone Taylor at his best, of course, is a guy that is utilized properly and limited sample size versus getting consistent reps. That's where the Tyrone Taylor hype is naturally going to fall down because it's like guys are great in limited spots, especially if they can handle those pinch hitting roles the way that he has. But in consistent reps starting, it'll be interesting to follow. But he gets to start today, of course, because Marte has yet to actually be in the starting lineup while he'll be available off the bench. However, he commands that sixth spot there. Love me some Tyrone Taylor. Batting seventh is DJ Stewart. DJ with a 799 OPS is not a third baseman. I apologize about that, everybody. I actually realized I have one major hiccup in the lineups here, and I thought I had it switched. I guess not. Brett Beatty is not commanding center field, so a couple mix-ups actually that I have in the lineup at the moment. And I don't understand why I have as many issues as I do here. Omar Narvaez is catching, I know that. Brett Beatty's commanding third base. DJ Stewart is actually commanding right field, believe it or not, tonight. And then Tyrone Taylor's commanding left field. So is Taylor commanding? Hold on, everybody. I'm so sorry. I don't know why this happened. Here I thought I had everything set up. This is what I get for thinking I had the pregame show all ready to go, like well in advance, and there weren't any hiccups. If I'm not going to have at least a couple typos, I'm doing something wrong. Yes, DJ Stewart is commanding right field, and Tyrone Taylor is commanding center field. I apologize about that, everybody. So again, scratch that. Scratch what I initially said. Tyrone Taylor is commanding center. Today, Brandon Nimmo is in left. Brett Beatty commands third base. DJ Stewart will be in right field. So just literally just flip-flop like one or two, and that's there. So no, Nimmo will be in left. Tyrone Taylor commands center field today. So with that adjustment there, and apologies about that for not having that fixed sooner, everybody, give me a yay or a nay in the chat. I'd love to hear that. Imagine Trevor May will certainly be back on the channel this year. I've already talked about him about doing more work together. He just has a really busy busy schedule. So as much as I would love to have May as like a every week guest, it will not be that consistent, but we're hoping to have him on. If we could have him on, on almost a monthly, basis, that'd be awesome. So Trevor May, you will definitely be seeing more on the channel. Mendoza right field. Now, let me know how you guys feel about the lineup today. If it's a yay lineup or if it's a nay lineup, spam it in the chat. Just let me know how you feel, everybody. Again, the lineup as follows as you spam it down below. Brandon Nimmo in left field today. Francisco Lindor shortstop. Pete Alonso first base. JD Martinez DH. Jeff McNeil there at second base. Tyrone Taylor commands center, not right, center. That was a bugaboo on my end. DJ Stewart gets a start in right field. Yes, that's correct. And Brett Beatty will get the start at third base with Omar Narvaez commanding center. So again, just want to emphasize that once more. That was an error on my end. So let me know how you guys feel about this current lapse. And again, thank you all so much for being here. And apologies. I wish I knew this ahead of time earlier on in the show, but it's better late than never, I suppose, right? It's always better late than never here. Also want to see how long. Okay, we're a half hour into the show. Awesome. We're not going to be too long-winded with the show today, everybody. So we're going to actually jump now into what we have with our awesome friends at BetUS with our picks and parlays of the day. But before I do, I want to see how you guys are feeling. If it's a yay or a nay lineup for you, continue to let me know your thoughts in the chat, everybody. And thank you all so much in advance. Thank you for chiming in to the latest WardyNYM post-game show. And you guys can expect more post-games throughout the week. Not necessarily after every single game, but certainly we're going to do before every single game, rather. But we're going to do our best to be as consistent as we possibly can. And see really how this does, too. Because post-game coverage really fluctuates on viewership because there isn't much of a shelf life, too. So that's one of those things to evaluate as we do them for the days going forward here. But again, appreciate you guys. Thank you all so much for being in here. But now let's get on to the picks. Jacob for the kind words. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Thank you, my friend. But now let's get on to my picks and parlays of the day, everybody. Yesterday, we had a 4-pick parlay. And of course, when you do a 4-pick parlay, I told you guys if you want to tail 2 out of the 4 picks, by all means, go ahead. If you want to tail all 4, okay, but go at your own risk. Because yesterday's 4-pick parlay, we went 2 for 4. All 1-run ball games. So very, very tight slate yesterday and very unlucky. And what I hit yesterday was a hit on the Mariners run line. Mariners were the underdog yesterday. So run line mean that they had to either win outright or make sure that they don't lose by any more than 1.5 runs. They ended up winning in a walk-off fashion. They won 2-1 versus the Braves yesterday. Thank you, Mitch Garver. Bobby Miller, who, as I said yesterday, had an absolute dominant outing against the Braves. 7 innings of shutty, 10 strikeout ball. He was absolutely masterful. Love to see that. I also had the Reds money line against the San Diego Padres because I knew Nick Lodolo was going to carve up batters. I told you guys in a pregame segment yesterday, so I hope you tailed those 2 picks because Nick Lodolo did exactly that. He went 7 shutty or so, or at least allowed maybe tops 1 run. He had over 10 strikeouts. He looked fantastic, the young southpaw. Again, a Swiss Army knife, a very sneaky pickup. Not pickup, I should say, but a very sneaky weapon there in that Reds rotation that doesn't get nearly enough love and attention he deserves. But the picks where we didn't hit yesterday, unfortunately, was I had Phillies money line, and they lost 6-5 to the Halos. So we are going to follow that up today and hammer the Phillies again. We're going back-to-back with the Phillies, folks. I have confidence in that Philly team. I know the Angels aren't the worst team in Major League Baseball or anything like that. It's going to be a tight pitching matchup, and that's why I have them in yellow instead of green, because what that means is my green picks today are the ones I'm most confident on, including my pick of the day, which is the Brewers money line. But the yellow are the ones where I'm not 100% confident in. But of course, I do like them a little bit more than others today. So I'm throwing them in the parlay. So a 2-pick parlay today would be there in the Twins and the Brewers. But before I get to that point, I did want to make sure I had all the picks discussed. Because the final pick yesterday that did not hit, unfortunately, I had the Yankees run line. And the Yankees had to make sure that they either won or made sure that they didn't lose by more than 1.5 runs. And the Yankees lost yesterday 2-0 thanks to Gunnar Henderson and his 10th home run this season. And I love those O's, and I do. And I love the Yanks pitching matchup today. They have the superior pitching matchup, in my opinion, between Nestor Cortez and Dean Kremer. But even then, I love the Orioles run line. The odds tonight are great because, again, the Orioles, all they need is to make sure they win outright or make sure that they don't lose by more than 1.5 runs. So the Orioles tonight, again at home, is game 2 of that series. It's a tight matchup. It's going to be a tight series, but this is another game where I could definitely see the Orioles either winning or if they're going to lose, make sure that they don't lose by hopefully more than a run or so. So that's why I have the Orioles there, my 4-pick parlay. But the big one today is the Minnesota Twins. For those that don't know, and for my sports bettors, of course, make sure you guys and gals bet responsibly. Thank you all so much in advance for doing so with our great sponsor at BetUS that you can check out by clicking the link down below to sign up today and get in on the action with all your sports betting needs, especially if you guys want to tail with me as we break down our post-game segments and see how we did with these. But the Twins have one of the best records in all Major League Baseball against one specific organization over their past 10 to 20 games, and that is against the White Sox. The Twins do very well against the White Sox, and they do it often, and that's why these are some significant odds at minus 172 for the money line to outright beat the White Sox today. And former Mets prospect who was traded along with Anthony Kay for Marcus Stroman under the Brodie Van Wagenen era, yes, Simone Woods Richardson, is getting another start. He's off to a great start this season for the Twins. The Twins have been rolling lately. Carlos Correa is back off the IL, if I'm not mistaken. They're having a lot click there, and they're facing Mike Soroka, the former Atlanta Brave. I like this matchup a lot for the Twins, and that's why they are one of my favorite picks of the day. Then I have there the Phillies money line again. You know, the Phillies didn't hit yesterday. They lost by a run. Let's double up. Let's follow it up. Give me double or nothing today, basically. We're hammering the Phillies money line to win against the Halos. Big pitching matchup between Spencer Turnbull, who's off to a tremendous start this season. Of course, former Detroit Tiger, threw, if I'm not mistaken, a no-hitter back in the 2021 season when everyone was throwing no-nos in the first couple of months. He was out for a year with injury. He's back now. He's off to a great start there in Philly versus the veteran southpaw Tyler Anderson, who's also off to a great start this year for the Angels. And given the fact that you have Bryson there, you have Schwarbo, and those lefty-lefty matchups can be difficult at times, that is why I don't have the Phillies as my uber confident pick like I did yesterday in the green, and I have it in yellow instead. So make that pick, of course, at your own risk. But that's why I made that decision. And my favorite pick of the day is Mr. Freddie Peralta, who carved up the Mets as one of the best young right-handers in all the National League as well, along with Assad there in the National League Central. I have him starting and winning against the Tampa Bay Rays today, as the Rays, of course, have been up and down this season. The Brewers have been off to a great start throughout the first month or so, and I love me some Freddie Peralta. He's just a fantastic talent in Major League Baseball. So that is my 4-pick parlay. If you guys want to say take 2 of the 4 that you would like to tail and place as your own as well, I would suggest the Twins and the Brewers outright money line plays. If you guys want to tail all 4, then I wish you the best of luck. Just know you're doing it at your own risk, to say the least. Wardy on a cold streak. This is what I mean. Anytime that you do a parlay beyond 2, really anything beyond 3 is where it's dicey. Because even 2-pick parlays, again, you know, you never know what's going to happen. Even when everything seems like it makes sense. I've hit on 6-leg parlays before, but I don't place them often for obvious reasons. I usually do that more so if it's UFC fight cards or things of that nature, where you have multiple things happening in order, that kind of way, or it's different sports slates in one. But truthfully, and I recommend this to everybody, if you guys like to sports bet and you do it responsibly, then you know that when it comes to parlays especially, you really want to stay in that 2 to 3 range. 4, of course, you can, but that's where you're really getting a little dicey, which is why, once more, I emphasize the picks the way that I did today for you guys. Let's see here, though. I'm a Yankee fan, but I like the Mets too, and I watch your videos all the time. Well, thank you, Matt June. Really appreciate that. Happy to have you in here. As I check up with the chat now, everybody, Lisa, thank you for the kind words. And again, guys and gals, thank you so much for hearing from today's video sponsor and BetUS. Make sure to check them out today for all your sports betting needs. But as we head back, that is from yesterday's show. My apologies for running that there. Didn't mean to run the intro again. That always happens at least once when I do these shows, unfortunately. But I meant to get rid of this so we can go back to the lineups here. And yes, for the final time, the lineup on the left is not exactly what you think. Beatty is at third base, not center field. DJ Stewart is at right field, not third base. And Tyrone Taylor commands center, not right. Let's see here. Wardy, why send down Vientos? I spoke on that earlier in the show, Mr. Marino. I hit the nail on the head with all that for you. So please make sure to go check it out if you haven't already. And thank you for being in here. Lindor Haynes second with a 190 average. What are we doing? Again, the Mets aren't going to move him down, whether you want them to or not, everybody. And folks, that is going to about do it for the live show. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I'm not going to be any more long-winded than this because we got the game in right around an hour from now. And I got a bunch of little things I got to do in between. So I hope you guys enjoyed the coverage. Stay tuned. We'll be live for post-game coverage here shortly after tonight's game. Hopefully after a victory. Hopefully after they even things up in this series and get back above 500 and not below 500 for the first time in a minute. Until then, though, everybody have a great great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. To my Knicks fans, let's get this in 5, baby. Fingers crossed, knocking on wood. Huge game for the Knickerbockers against the Sixers at the Garden tonight. All my Knicks fans know what's up, so I'm going to be having my eyes split. You know, SpongeBob meme when he's reading a book and the one eye is this way and the one eye is that way. That's how I'm going to be with the games tonight, because big stuff is happening in New York sports right now, and you got to be locked in. So that's going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all later tonight, hopefully after a victory. Have a great one, folks. And